for Easterseals of Michigan. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us this evening for our webinar called Are You Cool Going Back to School? I know we still have people joining on the line with us right now, but I'm going to go ahead and without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our moderator for this evening, which is our CEO and President of Easterseals Michigan, Mr. Brent Worth. He'll introduce our lovely agenda that we have and our great group of panelists that you're going to get to meet. Thank you so much again for joining us.
Hi, welcome everyone. I am Brent. Nice to meet you all. Hope you're enjoying your cookies and scones. Certainly they did not send me some, so that was a good thing. I don't need the cookies, but hopefully you're enjoying them. Thank you for joining us tonight. You know, what started out as a sprint last March has certainly turned into an ongoing obstacle course. And this time of year, planning back for school usually is a lot of excitement, but some anxiety. This year, I don't really think there's really any excitement, just lots of anxiety. So with COVID, stressors, parents are worried, and kids are worried. So together, we have put together some amazing panelists that I'm going to introduce you to, and then we're going to do questions, and then after the panelists answer the questions, we're going to have time for Q&A. So these individuals are partners for us in the community, or they work at Easterseals, or they're just supporters. So I'm going to introduce them, and then one by one, we're going to go through and ask questions. The first one is BB. I know that the student support network is stable and schools. We're joining us. Next is Dr. Jeffrey. Jeffrey is our Chief Medical Officer here at Easterseals, and he's also the Psychiatric Residency Program Director at Beaumont Health. We also have Uriel Stevens, who's our Director of Family Services here at Easterseals. We have Jennifer Thayer, who is a Program Manager at Easterseals in our Family Services. Phoenix Ferris, our 2020 Easterseals Ambassador. Thank you for joining us. We have Joshua, who's our Easterseals Junior Board Member.
Hey Brent, we're having a little bit of audio feedback on your microphone. I'm not sure if there's another option to use.
How's this sound? Can you hear me now?
Yes, very clear. Good.
You know, this Zoom will do this at times, and I'll have to just check me on that, and I have to test my speakers. So did people hear the introductions or no?
Let's go through them again, Brent, if you wouldn't mind.
All right, well, I heard today we had some audio feedback, so I'm going to introduce our panelists once again. Daryl Beebe, he's the Director of Student Support Network and Stakeholder Engagement at Southfield Schools. Dr. Jeffrey Canay, he's our Chief Medical Officer here at Easterseals, and he's also the Psychiatric Residency Program Director for Beaumont Health. Uriel Stevens, who's our Director of Family Services here at Easterseals. Jennifer Thayer, a Program Manager here at Easterseals. Phoenix Ferris, our 2020 Easterseals Ambassador. And Joshua Crooks, who is on our Easterseals Junior Board. So we're going to spend the next half hour providing questions to our panelists, and I'm going to just get this started. So the first question is for Daryl. So Daryl, the first question that I have for you, what types of precautions do you have in place for teachers regarding back to school plans?
That's a great question. I think in Southfield Public Schools are, you know, and I'm sure some people, or most people know that we're going back virtually to start the school year. So the first precaution that we're using is safety based on the data in the community and within Oakland County in our area that basically says that right now it's not safe. When we looked at the data at the time, it was approximately 600 students that under 19 that had COVID-19. Today, I think that number is well above 1,000. So at this point in time, you know, we're not coming back into the schools, even though teachers will be able to utilize their classrooms for instruction. So with that being said, once again, there's some different things that we're doing in terms of temperature checks if they're working in the classrooms, the level of cleaning, definitely certain cleaning products if they're working from the classroom. But once again, that's not a mandate. And our teachers are able to work from home, once again, because we're all about safety. So probably around October, once again, we'll look at the data and at that point in time, make decisions moving forward based specifically on the data.
Excellent, Daryl. Thank you. The next question that I have is for Dr. Jeffrey Guinea. Jeff, are there warning signs that adults should look for regarding potential mental health issues in their children?
Yeah, I think this is kind of applies to all times, especially right now with all the changes that are going on and the disruptions in children's lives with school being taken away or changed, altered in such a big way, sports, milestone events like getting your driver's license that might be delayed, not able, going to the prom, those sorts of things. There's a lot going on, and I think the important things to look out for are changes in functioning. And what I mean by that is, are your kids able to do the things that they need to do to take care of themselves and to get done what needs to be done? So if you're noticing that your kid was always taking really good care of their hygiene, for example, and now all of a sudden that's sliding, that's something important to talk about and look into. That being said, we know a lot of kids, especially teenage boys, for example, might not always be the most reliable to shower every day, put on deodorant, do those kinds of things. So it's important to take that into account, take context into account. And what I'm talking about is looking for changes. So changes in things like hygiene, changes in things like doing things that they enjoy, or suddenly stopping doing those things. Now, again, that being said, with COVID, that may be hard to assess, because going out with friends, going and playing sports, those things might be limited. But is your child so depressed that perhaps they're not playing board games or video games or riding their bike like you would expect them to under normal circumstances? And those things that they are able to do, those things that they do have access to, are those things changing? As school starts, are they having a hard time getting out of bed in the morning and logging on to their classes, focusing, paying attention, getting their homework done? Again, this is a hard thing to assess in COVID, because this is new territory, and kids are going to have a harder time with self-discipline and doing these things than they did when they were going to school every day. But I think if you're noticing big changes, big sudden changes, or them not being able to achieve the things that they need to achieve to take care of themselves, to take care of schoolwork, and not enjoying themselves, those I think are big warning signs, and more asking questions and checking in, seeing how they're doing.
Thanks, Dr. Guinea. So that's really just important all the time, not just during COVID, but it's especially important now. Thank you. Jennifer Thayer, Jen, tell us ways families can prepare to feel less anxious and nervous about returning or not returning to school.
Actually, you broke up. I couldn't hear the question. I'm sorry. Can you repeat?
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right. So tell us ways families can prepare to feel less anxious and nervous about either returning to school or not returning to school.
Sure. Well, as a parent myself, I've had to have those conversations with my kiddos, just sitting down and having a conversation, talking about what they're feeling anxious about. Anxiety is really a lot of that stress of the unknown. So feeling prepared, maybe you start doing some things together, like creating that coping box, being prepared as far as getting a schedule set again, getting your kids back to a normal routine with a bedtime, helping them, come up with different things that they can do throughout the day to kind of help alleviate some of that stress and anxiety, whether that's going outside, it's beautiful outside, go for a walk, go for a bike ride, do some physical activities to alleviate some of that stress. And really it comes down to making that, when you make that decision of going, either face-to-face or virtual, as a parent, it's really important to, stand by your decision, talk to your friends and your family members, and come up with a plan. I'm obviously working from home myself, and being able to manage having my kiddos do virtual learning, there's going to be some challenges. So making sure that I have a plan, and a backup plan if that, something were to happen. So again, it's really about communicating and having a support system, and sitting down and talking with your children, and letting them share with you how they're feeling about going back to school, either face-to-face or virtually.
So Jen, you mentioned a coping box. Can you give a little more detail on that?
Sure. So in a coping box, it could be some simple things of a picture of your favorite pet, a loved one. It could be just having some tools in there. My kids like to draw, that helps alleviate stress and anxiety. So maybe some favorite songs, lyrics in a box that they could have, a board game that they could pull out and play. So really it's about being as creative as you want, but they're tools that your child and you can use as a family. So in that moment when you're feeling stressed, you can pull something out of that coping box and use that to help alleviate some of that anxiety.
Excellent. Thanks, Jen. Phoenix, our first question for you, Phoenix. Knowing the pressures of middle school and high school, what is your best advice to parents on how to reach out to teens, and what should they look for?
Well, sorry, could you repeat that?
Sure. So knowing the pressures that students have in school, what's your best advice, the best advice to parents on how to reach out to teens?
The best way is definitely not to pressure them overly. Just throw them a quick question and show them that you are open to communication. Kids, especially if they're going through anxiety or they're going through struggles, don't typically like to be constantly questioned or to be helicoptered, I should say, constantly being viewed over, especially the older they get. So normally just showing you're open. If you notice they are being very distant or quiet, maybe setting up a family game night, a peaceful middle ground to be able to meet and open up conversation without feeling pressured.
Good advice, Phoenix. I'm going to have to use that myself with my own high schooler. I need to do a better job with that for sure. Thank you. Joshua's on our Easterseals Junior Board. Joshua, what pressures are kids under in school right now, even before we added, well, I guess we didn't add it, before the coronavirus appeared? So,
kids are under many pressures without COVID in school. Many kids are looking to get good grades, impress their parents. Kids are worrying about fitting in. They're worrying about working. A lot of kids work during school. They're worried about working and going to school. Kids are worried about stuff unrelated to school, emotional, financial. There's a plethora of stuff that kids are worried about without COVID.
yeah, for sure. So do you think there's any, they're just worried about the same stuff now that COVID added, it just even stresses it out that much more? Is that?
I think kids are more stressed out with COVID in place. I think the things that kids are more stressed out about are shifting more towards political views and health. A lot of kids are worried about staying healthy, keeping their family healthy, and kids are worried about the future. They're worried about what the future is going to bring them, both in school, political, emotionally, everything.
Thank you, Joshua. So I'm going to go back to Daryl. Daryl, the next question is, how has Southfield Schools tried to stay connected with families? And if so, what ways are you doing that? How you're reaching out to the families?
Great question. In a number of ways, when COVID first hit, I think our first inclination was to try to help students prepare as much as possible. So that started with computer distributions and making sure that students had the technology and had other things that they needed to be successful. So that was the first level of contact. But from that point on, we went on with continuing to do a level of surveys throughout this time period. So we do periodic surveys from time to time. And with us coming back to school, once again, we're trying to keep up with the technology, making sure everybody has what they need. But also we had an opportunity through I believe it's Farmers to Families program, where we received a grant, and we were bringing produce into the area, as well as we got a grant that also brought dairy. So every Friday for the past 14 weeks, we have been passing out food right over at Southville High School. It's a really beautiful setting in that, people have come to volunteer. And once again, we're putting food right in the trunk, but we're also getting to see a lot of folks in our community. So once again, I think we continue to try to communicate, through our staff as well. We have what we call sunshine calls, that, where counselors, teachers would just call families to check in, see how folks were doing. So we continue to do those things as well. But our teachers do a great job of reaching out to folks, and I think that's been fruitful for the district at this point in time.
Yeah, the sunshine calls are a great thing. I remember I used to get them once in a while from a previous boss, and they were always good, even from a boss. So right. Sunshine calls are good.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Gannay, substance use is on the rise right now. Looking at ways that parents can talk to their kids about this, and can you give some advice on how best parents can talk about the rising use and substance use amongst kids?
Yeah, I think
substance use overall, not just in kids, but
sure, yeah. Even before the pandemic and the shutdown, there was the opioid epidemic, and we were concerned about rising drug use among kids and adults. Opioids in particular are more commonly seen in adults, but in kids you're seeing rising rates of prescription drug use or huffing of things like, household products, cleaners, and fuel and that sort of thing. And unfortunately, those types of things are rising during this time, probably for a couple of reasons. One, everyone is more stressed out. There's fear related to the pandemic. There's grief if people have lost a loved one. There is financial stress, people losing their jobs. There's social isolation and important things and important milestones being taken away, especially from kids. And so we're seeing a spike in drug and alcohol problems and self-injurious behaviors, self-harm and suicidal behaviors as well. And so I often think about coping skills as being like a list. We each have a list of coping skills, whether it's formally written out or really just kind of in the back of our head. And drugs and alcohol and suicide is somewhere on all of our lists. For you, it might be number 1,000 on your list of things to try. For me, it might be number 3. And hopefully with therapy and with good mentors and teachers and parents, we help put healthy coping skills up on people's lists so that they have things to do before they get down to those unhealthy things. So things like exercising and talking it out, or seeing friends, or playing a game, or coloring, or riding your bike around the block, or punching a pillow, or punching a punching bag, those sorts of things. But unfortunately, with the shutdown, a lot of the access to healthy coping mechanisms have been taken away. You can't just go to the gym. You can't, play school sports at all or in the same way you expected to before. And so as those healthy coping skills are taken away, those unhealthy coping skills unfortunately go up the list, and people turn to those sooner. And so that is one issue. Another issue is just people are bored, especially kids are bored with all of these things being taken away. And parents are out working or working from home and maybe not able to pay attention what's going on. And so that's led to, kids sneaking liquor out of the liquor cabinet, maybe more than they would have in the past. I've heard of spikes in refrigerants being taken out of air conditioning units and being huffed. So these are things to be aware of and to be looking out for. There's actually been a huge spike in air conditioning repair calls during COVID, and it's believed that this may have something to do with that. So it's important to be paying attention, to be looking out for those warning signs, because those might be a sign of depression, they might be a sign of anxiety, but they also might be a sign of drug or alcohol use. And kids may be using those to self-medicate or to deal with their stress. And so watch out for those warning signs, and then talk to your kids. There really is, there's a lot of right ways to talk to kids about this, but there's only one wrong way, and that's not talking about it at all. And unfortunately, that happens a lot. And despite what kids might say, a study just came out recently that 80% of kids say that the biggest influence on whether they use drug or alcohol is their parents, and how their parents behave and use or don't use drugs or alcohol in front of them, and how they talk to their kids about it. And so it's something really important to do. And even if they don't appear like they're listening, they hear what you're saying. And those are seeds that you can plant and have ongoing conversations. And don't wait until you see warning signs. Have those conversations from the get-go about the dangers, about maybe loved ones and friends that you've had that have had problems. We all have. About the money that's sucked out of using drugs and alcohol and cigarettes, and all the negative consequences that can come, and how it's going to prevent them from reaching their fullest potential in life.
Oh, lots of good input there. Thanks, Jeff.
Hey, Brent, I'm going to jump in real quickly. We're going to do Q&A in a little bit. So if anyone would like to put one into the Q&A section, you can, as Brent continues on with the panelists. But if you think of a question, feel free to do that.
Awesome. All right, the next question is for Jen. Jen, how can you identify when a child needs extra support? How will you know when you need to find help?
So as a social worker, as a parent, what perspective are you asking from?
Either one or both, whatever you want to share. Probably from a parent. Give the advice to a parent. So.
Well, I think we did mention a few of these, but if you're noticing that your son or daughter is really kind of withdrawing from activities that they truly enjoyed before, if they're that social butterfly and they're no longer wanting to talk to friends, hang out with the family. So really, if they're isolating, you might see some physical signs where they're having nightmares, not eating well, sleeping. Sleeping has been either sleeping too much or not enough. So kind of looking out for some of those physical and emotional type warning signs. Again, I think Phoenix brought up a really good point in that you have to have that safe space for your children to be able to communicate with them. So it might even them be telling you, I'm not okay, I'm not feeling okay. So, paying attention to what they're saying and how they're reacting and responding to different things.
So I'm going to give you the next question too. So
sure.
Since you're right here, can you share a little bit how Easterseals is partnering with the schools here in throughout Michigan?
Sure. So right now we've partnered in a couple different ways. We are co-located in several school districts, and then we have what's called a warm referral pathway, which really kind of removes those barriers for access to services for students in Oakland County. And we've been doing this since about 2015. Throughout the whole pandemic, I've been in contact with all of our schools that we have partnered with and have been a part of all of the planning process for returning to school safely. The schools have reached out to Easterseals for their input because they want to make sure that they're meeting those social and emotional learning needs of their students. So they're really open arms to Easterseals and to receiving mental health services for their students and their staff. So they're really looking for innovative ways that we can help both their students and their staff. So
Excellent. Thanks,
sure.
Jen.
You're welcome.
Phoenix. Phoenix, on if you want to share like your personal, like what's the best way that you deal and how to cope, with certain stressors and certain other behavioral health issues. What is best for you, and how did you approach it?
Typically the best thing for me was having an artistic outlet between either drawing, singing, acting even. I would play games like charades or anything else I could act out, just so I can, because sometimes words aren't enough to express exactly how you truly feel. So sometimes the best things are finding those things that will help express yourself. Also, just being able to reach out to someone, either a family member or even not entirely a stranger, but somebody with an outer look at things, like someone from Easterseals or from school, even if you don't feel comfortable reaching out to someone you see on a regular. Just realizing and seeing that I had someone to reach definitely helped.
Yeah, so having that somebody that you feel comfortable to reach out to is definitely really important. So Thank you for sharing that, Phoenix. Joshua, I'm gonna turn this around a little bit. What is the most fun and exciting thing you did during this pandemic?
I've done a lot of fun stuff during this pandemic. One of the most fun things for me was going on vacation in a safe way. My cousins, they own a beach house up north, so me and my family, we went on vacation there. It was on the lake, so that was nice. It was just really nice to change our location in quarantine and not just be at home like this at 24/7.
Yeah,
That's fun.
that's great. That sounds like a great vacation. So thank you. Next question's Daryl. Daryl, is Southfield Schools doing any type of screening for depression or anxiety in kids, or are you guys looking to do anything or have done anything like that?
Yes, we're looking for screeners now. Of course, my brain is going blank, but we had a screener that checked trauma, but I can't remember the name of it right off the top of my head. But yeah, we're definitely looking to screen kids, something that will be quick. Matter of fact, since I've got you all on here, so if you all have a tool that we could use, that would be fantastic. But we definitely want something that we could give our students as well as our families, so that we can meet that need of support for them. But at this time, we don't have anything right now at this moment, but we're working on it.
Awesome. Yeah, we'd love to partner with you and share with you some ideas that we have, or actually some tools that we're aware of as well that you guys might be interested in, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah. This one's for Dr. Ganay. So, in kind of keeping along, changing the theme up a little bit, can you share some positive effects on families that you believe can come out of this pandemic?
I think I've seen this with my own family, and I've heard this from people I work with and people we take care of at Easterseals. But in a lot of ways, the shutdown has brought families closer together, because a lot of the the distractions have been removed from our lives, people, for better or worse, are stuck together. And how we spend that time can really affect how we're coping and how we're handling it. And so if we're spending all that time glued to the television and the news, we're all going to be terrified, right? But if we're spending that time talking with each other, playing games, when the weather's nice, going out and riding bikes together, going to the park when we're allowed to, doing things together, I think that can really bring families together and really be beneficial. A lot of people have been able to work from home during this time, and instead of having their lunch break at work, they can have that lunch break with their kids, and maybe they've never been able to do that before. And so I think bringing families together can be really nice and powerful. I also think people have started thinking about social isolation a little bit more, and not everybody has the benefit of living with other people. Some of our grandparents might be living alone, and I think people are being a little bit more mindful of that, reaching out to grandparents, teaching grandparents maybe how to use video chat, and then being able to talk to them maybe even more than they were before all of this happened. Yeah. So there's been some really positive benefits despite social distancing, which I prefer to call physical distancing, because what we're doing right now is social, even if we're far apart. But despite the forced physical distancing, in some ways, people are being more social than ever, having game nights, having calls, video chats with family and friends more than ever. And I think that has been positive.
Thanks, Jeff. Certainly, I mean, I've heard a lot here too with all of our families, and definitely had more family dinners than we've ever had, certainly during COVID. So it's been good. Jen Thayer. So Jen, how is Easterseals? How are we going to be innovative to outreach to students this school year? Depending on if they're distance learning, if they're at school, what are we going to try to do to be innovative and creative?
Sure. Well, we're doing a lot of it right now. We're using a telehealth platform, so we're able to reach our individuals served, our students, virtually, which has been extremely successful. And again, like I said earlier, we're partnering with so many school districts that we're working with them and seeing how we can weave in and out throughout even the school day to make sure that we can meet with our individuals, and do those therapy sessions. So it's really about technology right now. We received a grant that's going to allow us to have telehealth equipment in several school districts so that we can be stationed maybe in our homes, but we can reach students in different schools doing those telehealth type visits. So technology is definitely a key right now. But we're also meeting families, face to face in the community. So really offering choice to our families and seeing what they're comfortable with. Easterseals has been amazing with our staff and being patient with us and listening to us and seeing what we're comfortable with doing too. So we have clinicians that are out in the homes right now and out in the field. And then we have a lot of clinicians that are working from home just like me or at the office. So honestly, whatever it takes, we make it happen.
Excellent. Thanks, Jen. I think I've heard that one before too, so I like that. Whatever it takes. That's a good one. All right, Phoenix. What is your best advice for families right now?
My best advice for families right now is to make sure to stay connected and communicating with each other through all this, letting each family member know, hey, we're doing all right, or hey, something's happened, but there's no need to worry, or just updating on the regular and making sure that even if there is a bump in their schedules and their usual plannings, to keep a decent schedule or decent setup in the home to make sure that it stays all together.
Yeah. Thank you, Phoenix. Joshua, what would you tell your peers? What would you tell, or what advice would you have for your peers and how they can help, their peers or their loved ones? What best advice can you give them?
Honestly, just be there for them. Just having someone to talk to, anyone to talk to, can help a family member or friend. Just ask questions, check in daily, make sure they're okay. If there's a friend that you know is struggling, or if you see them struggling, just reach out and contact them. That's why we have phones. It's so much easier to contact people virtually.
Yes. Thank you, Joshua. Daryl, I'm going to give you the same question too. What is your best advice for families right now?
Great question. My best advice for families, really kind of piggybacks on what the doctor was talking about in terms of, this is a time to draw close, and I know it can be frustrating. I've got a couple of young adults in this house, and it can be difficult at times, but it's really time to appreciate one another. You mentioned having dinner together, because what's going to happen eventually, all this will go away and then we'll take back off and separate. But this is a time to really appreciate who you have. I would say, just personally, I really have gotten to know my wife, gotten to know my daughter in a better way. And she's supposed to be going to school, and they went virtual, so she's still here in her senior year of college. But at the same time, you've got a couple of choices. You want to look at the glass half empty or half full. So in light of the other side of this thing, where I've lost a lot of loved ones, a lot of church members, I'm just grateful to still be here. So, we maximize the moment and be grateful, that we're still here, because the alternative in light of COVID is, I think we all know the answer to that. You'd be very sick or even leave here. So I think, maximize your relationships, get to know each other. And, and one other thing I would say as well, in terms of, this is a time too, in terms of, being able to work on your craft, or if you're a writer, or if you're a musician, or, now's the time to write that book, or to build that dream, or make that song, so this is a time also to be creative.
Yeah. Thank you, Daryl. I'm going to keep going with it. Dr. Gane, what is your best advice for families right now?
I think it's really important to keep going back to your priorities and trying to keeping things in context. There's a lot going on, and we're getting pulled in a lot of directions right now. There's a lot of stress, and fear can kind of affect how we think and make decisions, and what we think is important. And so we have to kind of cut ourselves a little bit slack, especially as parents, because if you're trying to pay the bills, trying to keep your job, maybe you're getting paid less, or maybe you lost your job and it's harder to do those things, and you're trying to take care of your kids. And now with school coming, you're trying to homeschool your kids and keep track of their homework and do all those things. That's a lot, and that's stressful. And I think we all have to, we all are imperfect, and it's impossible to truly keep track of everything. We have to cut ourselves a little slack. We have to try to prioritize what's the most important things. And unfortunately, when we get under stress, a lot of times what we actually think are the most important things go first, and the things we like to do go away, and the things we feel we have to do take over. And then that's no good for any of us, right? The analogy of, if you're on an airplane and the oxygen mask pop down, you have to put yours on first before you put the oxygen mask on your child. You love them. Putting it on them second doesn't mean you don't love them. But you have to take care of yourself before you can take care of everyone else. And if you're not getting good sleep, if you're not getting good nutrition, if you're not getting exercise, if you're not just getting a little bit me time, then it's going to be really hard to take care of the people that you love and be effective. And so cut yourself some slack, try to keep your priorities straight, and try to put things in context best you can.
Thanks, Jeff. It's 6:40, so it's time for the Q&A. We do have one question here that I see, so I'm going to read the question, and just ask if one of the panelists want to answer it. I'll be open or we can pick some Monday, but right now I'll just leave it open. So the first question is, many students have experienced the loss of a loved one during this pandemic. The presence of COVID has limited attendance at funerals and even being able to talk in person with other family members. My fear is that many of our youth haven't had the time to grieve or process the loss. What can parents do to help discuss and support their children with their loss? Would anybody like to respond to that?
I can respond.
Thanks, Jen.
I think that's a great question. You know, that especially I've experienced some loss myself, and being unable to attend a funeral has been tough. You know, and grieving is a process, and it's a process that is different for everyone. So I think it's important that, again, we're talking about that safe space again, allowing your child to, you know, go through the grieving process with you. And if you're not the right person for them, helping them reach out to, you know, maybe a professional, mental health professional, to have someone that they can talk to, and be able to share some of those feelings that they're having. You know, that's not an easy question, because there's so many of us, I think, that have been affected by COVID, and we've had to, you know, figure out a way how to grieve, and what that really looks like and feels like for us. So I would definitely say, you know, seek out a mental health professional if it's, you know, interfering with their daily life activities, and you're seeing a lot of those physical symptoms that we talked about early on, you know, the nightmares, the not sleeping. So yeah, anyone want to add?
I would say one thing, and this just goes for stress or grief in general, is make sure you let your kids or your loved ones who are going through grief around you know that whatever they're feeling, that's okay. A lot of times we ask someone how they're doing, we hear a scary answer or a negative answer, and then we have to rush in and fix it, right? And make them not feel that way. And I think it's much more helpful just to listen and accept those feelings about how they're feeling, and roll with it and talk to them about it, and not try to change it. Because the truth is, you probably, by forcing the change, you're probably not going to change it. But by just listening and being there when they're ready to open up about it, and letting them know you're there whenever they're ready to open up about it, that might actually help with change.
Okay.
I want to add on to that real quick. I had a loss 10 days before we went into complete shutdown, and so I actually got to go to the funeral, but I didn't get to go to the rest of the funeral procession because I hopped on a bus and went on a vacation with my school. But anyways, I just want to add on to what Jeff said. It's important to have someone that will listen to you, and it's also important just to give your kids time, or give your friends time, whoever experienced their loss, and let them grieve themselves. And if they want to communicate, let them communicate with you.
Excellent. Thanks, Joshua. Does anybody else have any questions that they want to type into the Q&A? If not, we have one that Dr. Gane would like to add on to. So.
Are you talking about the high school question?
Yeah, the one you wanted to have more detail with. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So the question was about, you know, the person said many students at high school level are able to seek out mental health resources such as school counselor at the physical school without having to let their parents know. Where should they look for resources now? This is one of my biggest concerns about the schools being closed, is that it really does reduce the access to resources, not just for building academic skills and social skills, but also for mental health resources. And we know teachers are mandated reporters. So if kids right now, there are kids right now that are trapped at home with people who are abusive and neglectful. And during school, hopefully someone's noticing the signs of abuse and neglect, whether it's the behavioral signs or physical signs like bruises and things like that. But without being in person at school, these things unfortunately are going to miss. And we know under this stressful time that their police dispatchers are seeing spikes in calls for domestic violence and child abuse. And so it's problematic. And so where do kids get help? Well, I would say, and I wrote it in there. I don't know if everyone can see that, what I wrote in response, but I think confidentiality is always a concern for kids who are seeking help. They're always worried that if they tell a school counselor something, or if they tell a psychiatrist or a therapist something, that's going to get back to their parents. And so it's important that that they know that actually confidentiality, that healthcare professionals of all types have to protect someone's confidentiality. The only time they can violate that confidentiality is if they feel that that's the only way to protect somebody, because that person is going to hurt themselves or hurt someone else if they don't tell somebody. So that's one piece. Another piece I would say is that under Michigan law, anybody 14 years or older, any child 14 years or older, has a right to up to 4 months of therapy without their parents' consent. And so kids can look on the internet. You can look for clinics, Google psychotherapy, counselors, social workers, psychologists, psychiatrists. You can reach out to them yourself. You can even call us at Easterseals at 1-800-75-SEALS. We or other mental health clinics can provide, under Michigan state law, therapy for up to 4 months without ever letting the parent know. And so that is out there, and that's important for kids to know, and for adults in kids' lives to know, because like I said, sometimes kids are afraid to go, and they worry that there's going to be backlash if their parent finds out they're going to therapy, or if they ask their parent to go to therapy, that parent might prevent them from doing that. And right now with all the telehealth, there might be, you might not necessarily need a ride to get there. Easterseals, we're doing in-person services and video services, and so are a lot of other places. And so that may open up opportunities to get services without having to catch a ride or drive really far or find transportation.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, sorry I missed that question earlier, but I know Daryl would like to add on to that as well.
Thanks so much. So from a school perspective, in regards to working directly with counselors, I know people feel like COVID is so different because everybody's, away and we don't see each other, but counselors are still operating in the same capacity. And we're meeting with counselors all the time. So if someone has a need, the student should be able to reach out directly to the counselor and share their concerns. And as Dr. Gane was talking about, they still have to maintain that level of confidentiality. So, even though you're not able to walk down that hallway or walk into the counseling office, you can still share your concerns with those counselors, and they will work with you to get you the support that you need and maintain the confidentiality that you're looking for as well.
Excellent. So like if a student then would just contact the school and reach out to get a hold of their counselor, then is that?
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, that piece comes back around to the sunshine check-ins and whatnot. So because the counselors should be having some dialogue with students with their caseload, so they should have established some level, we're talking through Zoom, and I know some of these platforms are not confidential or not secure, but there should be some level of dialogue and contact. Long and short of it is that if a kid wants to reach out to a counselor, if a kid wants to reach out to a social worker in the building, if they want to talk to one of their favorite teachers, they should be able to do that, either by phone, through email, or through some kind of video platform.
Can I add too?
Yes, please.
I was going to say too that our teachers are all being trained in some social and emotional learning techniques. So every student that attends school is going to be offered a lot of these types of social and social and emotional learning activities. So the teachers, again, we're going to go back to that screening tool. The teachers are going to be the ones that are kind of, screening and looking at these students and being taught to recognize. So there's going to be some professional development that's happening with our teachers as well. So they're going to be able to recognize some of these warning signs and symptoms and be able to refer to counselors as well. So there's going to be a connection there too with the teachers and the counselors. I'm very impressed with our school districts and that they have a lot of staff that are already doing so many wonderful things with our students who are already communicating with counselors. So I feel like that direct line of communication is what's key, because a lot of times our students may not feel comfortable even reaching out to a counselor. So having that teacher being the one to kind of initiate some of that can help as well.
Thanks, Jen. I'm going to ask if there's any other questions, if you could type them into the Q&A, that'd be great. If not, oh, there's one coming up. So, oh, I guess it's an answer. So, if that's all the Q&A, we can wrap up. Reagan, is there anything that we need to add before I wrap up, or give the thank yous out, or anything like that?
I don't think so. Thank you everyone for joining, and thank you to our wonderful group of panelists for being with us this evening.
Yeah, so I want to thank everyone certainly for attending tonight as well. There was a lot of common themes there, but I wrote it down and it kept coming out at the end. But it was as a parent, be there, provide a safe spot, listen, and talk, and just don't try to fix the problem. Just really listen and have a conversation and just be there. So I hope you feel a little more at ease. I don't know, these times are certainly stressful. So, but maybe you have some additional tools, and the coping box is always a good one too. So remember that one for sure. And hopefully you have something that you can either do for yourself or share with others. Just a little bit more before we wrap up too, but hopefully you get, for all those participating here, I know there's some on the line that already are great supporters of Easterseals, and I want to thank you for being there and being a supporter of us. But if you guys want to know more, you can always reach out to any of us here at Easterseals, the development team, Reagan, myself. We're also going to offer, if you guys want to have one-on-one time with any of the panelists to ask conversations or questions, let us know that as well. Reach out to us. If you want to speak to Daryl or to Dr. Gannay or to Jen, to Joshua, we can figure that out and get your questions and have a private conversation as well. I also want you to think about, if you want to, support Easterseals. We're doing a lot of creative, innovative activities, helping a lot of kids, helping a lot of families, helping a lot of adults, not just during these tough times, but we've been doing it for 100 years actually here in Michigan. And our services really have never been more in demand than they are right now. So if you'd like to consider donating, being part of President's Council, it's an annual donation of $1,000 a year, and it goes a long way. And I feel it's a really good investment. You can check it out at Eastersealsmichigan.com. You can donate there, or again, you can speak to any of us. And again, I can show you that it's a great investment and it goes a long way in supporting our community. So on behalf of Easterseals, I want to thank you all for being part of our virtual event and talking about getting ready back for school. And have a great night, everyone. Thank you.